Hi, I'm Kendall with the Rawls Group. The old African proverb, "it takes a village," illustrates the essential nature of a team approach to succession planning. Succession planning is a complex endeavor. As such, it requires leveraging the expertise of a diversity of backgrounds. Collaboration and different expert opinions provides a 360-degree approach, ensuring the possible, probable, and potential issues impacting your long-term vision are addressed. To provide insight into common questions received from business owners, we are leveraging the village of our valued strategic relationships. As you listen to this episode, you'll be able to immediately apply the key takeaways and you'll come back for more. Now we're going to focus on what should we be doing to be more proactive if something unforeseen like COVID-19 happens again? What should we be focusing on?
We should stay current with emerging technologies, particularly anything that allows your organization and workforce to be more flexible. From a legal standpoint, that might mean keeping in touch with your attorneys for explanations of any new laws and how you can use those to your advantage. It may also mean discussing with your attorneys what kind of pitfalls are in those new laws and how to avoid them. You should also talk to others in your industry to see what their experience in response to the current situation was like. You may also want to check publications that are specific to your industry for additional advice. Nobody wants to waste resources or capital, but investing now in new technologies and upgrades and staying current with those will support your organization in the future to enable it to adapt to any new events that may come up. Talk to your workforce to find out what your response was like and how that worked for them and what didn't work for them. This will help you in the future. Invest in training your workforce regularly so that they can utilize the technology and processes that you've put in place. This step is very important for a successful implementation of new technology. Focus on what your organization truly needs to be successful and profitable. There may be things that make it easier, but in a pinch, what is your foundation and is it secure? Do you have redundancies in place for the most important aspects of your business? How much of your team needs to be physically present to operate effectively? And can any new technologies or processes change this number? All of this may prove to be helpful in the event of a natural disaster, terror attack, or a pandemic.
So here are a couple areas that we would encourage everyone to take a quick look, whether to evaluate where you've been, but definitely to plan ahead. First, consider creating an external task force, partnering with your peers in the community or in your region. Even consider people in your industry group, even if they're outside of your region, but making sure that you are well connected to others who have similar concerns as you might have, and you can learn from them and hopefully potentially even give them opportunities where they can benefit as well. The next one would be an internal crisis team. Again, we hope it doesn't happen again, but let's make sure we plan just in case. So having that internal crisis team will be helpful in making sure we have the communication systems in place, we have the right points of contact for each of our locations, making sure that our operations is up and running, and when we do have to go remote, making sure that all the bases are covered and we've thought of everything, including resources, personnel, and even notifying vendors. So making sure those vendor contact lists are up to date, making sure we have all the right corresponding information so that we can reach out quickly and efficiently, and making sure that we don't miss a beat when things that we don't want to happen might come up and might change business, even if it's temporarily. The other area would be the ability to work remote. If you would have asked us in February of this year, do you think your team can go 100% remote? Most of us would have in fact said no. But just a month later, most of us in fact are working remote. And so during those times, it wasn't necessarily what we planned, but we shifted. We shifted quickly. We learned to be flexible. We learned to mute when needed, and we also learned how to make it work. So recognizing that it may not have been optimum, but figuring out what we need in order to just sometimes get it done with the safety of our people in mind. The other area would be cross-training, making sure we have the right people in place if someone does need to step away. So making sure that we have people who are well-versed in other areas so that they can pivot when needed. And then finally, our PPE vendors, making sure we have enough contact information so that if we do get a call, we can go ahead and do what we need to do for planning purposes so that we can maintain the safety of our employees as well as our business. And then finally, making sure that we do like a pulse check, finding out what did we do well, what did we not do well, and what in fact do we need to do differently going forward now that business has shifted. So reaching out, not just to your executive team, but to all of your employees and finding out what were their takeaways. What could we have done better? What could we have improved? And what have we learned? So these are just a few of the areas that we feel like that we'll all be wiser for in the end, but making sure we have a plan in place, again, for the unimaginable.
No one saw the current crisis coming. Some reacted well, some didn't. And while we can't predict the future, we, especially when you have a crisis of this kind of epic proportion, we can position our company and our people to be ready when the time comes. Now, what did businesses do that allowed them to survive when others didn't? Number one, dry powder. Cash is king. Number two, having a management team that is used to working and planning strategically together. And three, contingency plans that are ready to go. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. Size doesn't necessarily protect you, but cash does. Making sure that you have the liquidity so that you can survive during a downturn like this is critically important. Because what it does is it allows you to do a lot of things that others who weren't prepared are not able to do. For instance, you can give security to your people that others might not be able to do. Being in a position where you don't have to lay off people like a lot of people had to do. Being in a position where you could keep their benefits going longer, things of that nature. Greater security for your people means the world. Number two, the ability to take advantage of that crisis situation. We have business owners who are actually out buying businesses during this time. And obviously they're buying them from people who weren't prepared. So make sure that you've got the cash reserves which are critical to protecting you during a crisis. Next, you need a management team that is regularly dealing with strategic priorities, not just day-to-day operations. This type of executive team and or what we often call a management advisory board, when they are working together on that basis doing strategic priorities, they are able to make a quick switch over into a crisis management situation and bring leadership to the whole organization. In contrast, those organizations where they basically work from more of a silo mentality had a tougher time. So if you haven't done a crisis analysis where you look at all kinds of different situations where there is a tremendous drop off in your revenues, then you need to do it, and you need to do it right away. During the crisis, management teams need to work together, focused on the priorities, holding each other accountable, and encouraging their people so that they can move forward together. When crisis hits, your people need to know that you have the financial resources to get them through this, that you have a management team that is working together, and that you have a plan that you can execute so that everybody is going to succeed. When I talked to this one manager, the manager's comment was, "We know our boss, and she is always thinking ahead and planning against all kinds of contingencies, so we know we're prepared to deal with anything."
Thank you to our strategic partners, The Village, for participating and sharing your perspective. Do you have a burning question you want to discuss with an expert? Feel free to submit it via the Ask an Expert link featured on the page. Continue to listen to this series now or come back later for more. Each question featured may want you to learn something new.